The final trailer for The Rise of Skywalker has been released. I'm sure we'll be getting TV spots over the course of the next 2 months that'll slowly reveal more and more footage, but for the most part, this will be our last best look at what's to come in Episode 9, so let's break it down. We open on a jungle planet. Might be Endor, might be Yavin 4, might be a new planet. I don't know. I'm kinda leaning towards Yavin 4 right now if it's not new. Some of those shots with Rey running with rocks and cliffs in the background feels more in line with the old Rebel base to me, but Rey is running around with training remotes and her lightsaber. Maybe it's a training session gone wrong? She almost seems like she's trying to escape. Maybe they're not remotes and there's some sort of booby trap. But she runs to a cliff and leaps across, and this is such a sick transition into the Death Star ruins. At least that's what I assume they are. You can see the classic Imperial pill lights on the walls. That's just gotta be a scavenger's paradise in there. Think of all the portions you can get, Rey. I really want this to be early on in the film, like maybe even the opening sequence. I want to just jump into something crazy like Raiders of the Lost Ark, where our heroes enter the Death Star to find whatever it is they're after, explore some ruins, and of course run into Kylo Ren, but we'll get to that later. There's a shot of Finn on what I think is Pisana. We've seen shots of Finn and Janna riding those horse-like creatures called Orbaks on similar-looking terrain, and they're said to be native to Pisana. It also seems like similar landscape to where the Death Star ruins wound up, so maybe bits and pieces of it got blown across the galaxy or to another planet in the Endor system. Pisana is also supposed to be the desert-looking planet, which is totally plausible, of course. It just feels off in Star Wars when we're used to having entire planets covered in only one biome. Anyway, we cut to a Resistance base with a big crowd of people surrounding Lando, C-3PO, Poe, Finn, and a new Mon Calamari that for now I'm going to guess is Aftab Akbar, who was recently introduced in the Allegiance comic. Poe says that they're not alone and that good people will fight if they lead them. The Resistance has certainly grown since The Last Jedi, where there were only a dozen of them left, but I get the sense that they're not in any shape to really stand up to the First Order. I think they're going to need to continue setting an example. They need to lead the galaxy in the fight against the First Order and the Emperor. Rose gets a front and center shot with Connix and Dominic Monaghan's character in the background. I think this is related to some later shots with people apparently charging across the deck of a Star Destroyer. This seems like an evacuation to me, with people hurrying into that structure or ship behind Rose. Also, the Orbaks are in this shot too. Is this still Pisana, or are these horses just all over the galaxy? The Orbaks are really throwing me off. There's a shot of Finn and Poe and Chewie next to Poe's new orange and white X-Wing. I just now realized we didn't get any shots of the Resistance's best pilot in the cockpit, but if he's got a new X-Wing, I assume he'll be flying around at some point. And this has got to be the Tantive 4, right? I don't see the point of using the same ship and the same color scheme if it's just the same model but a different ship. People have rightfully pointed out that some reference books have said that the Empire destroyed the Tantive 4 after its capture in A New Hope, but I can let that go. If there's a good reason to have it in the story, I will happily defer to actual story content over a reference book. We can revise a reference book. Those exist to fill in gaps of information in the absence of a story doing it. Occasionally those things will be overwritten, and as long as it's for a good reason, I say go for it. Okay, now we're back to the Death Star in the water. Rey says people keep telling her they know her, but no one does, and then Kylo says he does as he steps out of the waves, which is just so cool. And is this not the absolute best place for a lightsaber battle? I mean, come on. Next, we see a glacier with what looks like a village built onto it. TIE fighters race in, and part of me wants to guess that this is the planet Kijimi. It looked like a pretty cold place in the teaser trailer, but this comes with a Palpatine voiceover saying, "Long have I waited, and now your coming together is your undoing." With that, we see a throne of some sort, and Phil Sostak of Lucasfilm tweeted out that it sure looks similar to some Ralph McQuarrie concept art of the Emperor's throne from Return of the Jedi. I do oddly get a similar vibe from that other concept piece of Luke meeting the Emperor, just without the lava. Then we see an Imperial Class 1 Star Destroyer come crashing out of the ice. My first thought was that maybe that fleet from the D23 footage wasn't actually flying at all, but maybe they were floating underwater, hidden under ice. I mean, it looks like clouds and lightning and sky and stuff, but this is Star Wars. You don't know how this weird planet's oceans work. It's probably more likely that the Star Destroyers come crashing out of the ice and then assemble in the sky, but whatever. I like my ice fleet idea. Speaking of fleets, holy cow, this shot. Do you have a favorite Star Wars ship? It's probably in there somewhere. We've got Mon Calamari cruisers, U-Wings, Consular-class ships from the Phantom Menace, bunker busters, hammerheads, and more. But of course, the big one is the Ghost. It has to be the Ghost. Like the Tantive, I just don't think they'd put a VCX 100 front and center in this shot if it were anything else. I've gotta say, when I saw this shot, I was floored. I don't know why, but I just never would have guessed J.J. Abrams would be this collaborative. That's not based on anything real, I just thought he would be more interested in doing his own stuff. I'm not going to spend too much time breaking this shot down though. I'll link to a thread by Admiral Nick22 on Twitter who did a great job of listing them all. But I will point out that I think Lando and Chewie are piloting the Falcon here. I think we're going to be seeing a final act similar to Return of the Jedi, with Rey on the ground going through a more personal battle while a massive space battle is going on overhead. I think this is probably the Resistance leading the galaxy like Poe mentioned earlier in the trailer. Also, I really want to see the Colossus from Star Wars Resistance in there somewhere. But to take another look inside the cockpit of the Falcon, we've got Rey, Chewie, Finn, Poe, and 3PO. I just want to say again, I am so happy all our characters are together for this one. I loved their chemistry in The Force Awakens, and splitting them up in The Last Jedi was probably good for their growth as characters, but yes, I want them all to be together, having best friend shenanigans across the galaxy. There's another shot of the lightsaber fight on the Death Star ruins. Yes, it's still awesome, but there isn't much more to talk about. So the next shot is interesting. A Star Destroyer next to some sort of explosion. It kinda looks like the Alderaan explosion from A New Hope, so I'm guessing this is a dying planet. That kinda makes me a little nervous if that's the case. I'm just so over planet killers. No more Death Stars, no more Star Killer bases. If we've now moved on to Star Destroyers that can destroy planets, it's just kind of exhausting. And we can see a better shot of those massive ventral cannons each destroyer has now later on in the trailer. I'm betting this is the aftermath of those red blasts that we saw hitting the ice world in the D23 footage. I'm just like, why, Palpatine? Maybe this is part of Operation Cinder, like it's the last step. The whole point of Cinder in the books and comics was to say that if an empire didn't keep its emperor alive, then it didn't deserve to continue on. So maybe he is just trying to spitefully destroy everything. Which to me says maybe Palpatine is still really dead. I'm on board with that because I never liked his return in Legends. So if this winds up being a continuation of Operation Cinder and it's been set up over the course of the last 4 years in books and comics, that's pretty cool. Those are the only two things I'm iffy on right now. Palpatine's return and the possibility of more Death Stars disguised as Star Destroyers. But let's move on to Rey approaching the Death Star on this water speeder thing. It looks like she's going in alone, so maybe that early shot of Finn with the macro binoculars was him watching her progress. Next up is the adorable little puppet Babu Frick doing some work on 3PO's head. I would never have guessed that 3PO would have delivered the most emotional line in the trailer for me, but he did. When asked what he's doing, he says he's taking one last look at his friends. Zori Bliss is also in the room. The recently released image of her holding a small disc had people speculating that it had something to do with 3PO's head, and I think that's probably right. I think Babu is helping the droid access the memories he had wiped at the end of Revenge of the Sith. I don't know why yet, but I guess doing that is going to revert his whole personality back to that point in his life. He might forget everything that happened after the prequel trilogy, or maybe there's some other danger. Whatever it is, it sounds like 3PO is bravely making a sacrifice for the sake of his friends, and he's doing so without the fear that he's so well known for, and excuse me while I go cry. Not to ruin the moment, but there is a B-1 battle droid behind him, and that's pretty cool too. Then the music kicks up a notch as Finn, Poe, and Chewie run through a First Order hallway blasting stormtroopers. Then we see the same shot of Leia and Rey hugging that we've seen before. I was hoping for new Leia footage, but it's kinda to be expected that what they have is limited, and I'm sure they don't want to give everything they have of Carrie away. We see more of the Pisana speeder chase, and Luke says confronting fear is the destiny of a Jedi. Your destiny. I'm going to pause on that for a moment because I love that line. It's true, the root of Anakin's fall was the fear of loss. Luke's greatest fear in the Dagobah cave was that he would become Darth Vader, and he very nearly did in Return of the Jedi. We've seen Kylo Ren's own trip to the Dagobah cave in the Age of Resistance comics, and I think his greatest fear is that he is irredeemable, that he's caused too much pain and suffering to be anything but evil when deep down he knows he's not. His conflict and pull to the light has been present in both movies. What if Luke isn't saying those lines to Rey, but he's actually saying them to Ben? I'm definitely on the side of Ben-demption. I absolutely think he needs to have some consequences for his actions. He can't hop back over to the light side and expect everyone to forgive him, but he can finally make the right choice and start to make up for what he's done. But still, on that speeder chase, just look at these faces. Look at Poe and Finn having the time of their lives in the middle of a near-death experience. I will always remember their escape from the Star Destroyer in The Force Awakens as the moment I knew JJ had done it. He had hooked me. I love that scene with all my heart, and it means the world to me to see these two characters together again. And look at Lando. Look how happy all these people are. I know they're going to be in peril like the whole movie, but I love their smiles. One thing I've said that the new trilogy needs is a proper big space battle. The Battle of Starkiller Base didn't quite do it for me, and neither did the bombing run in The Last Jedi. This is what I'm about. In this shot, we can see a Y-Wing take down a TIE dagger before going after the ventral cannon of a Star Destroyer. Zori Bliss comes with a Lego Y-Wing set, so that could be her in there. The astromech color even matches, I think. Next, we've got Janna leading that Orback charge on the deck of a Star Destroyer with BB-8 rolling right along with them. Where is Poe, though? If someone could tell me that Poe is just flying with another astromech, that would be great. Why is BB-8 not with Poe? That worries me. But jumping back into the Death Star, we're in the Emperor's throne room, which is just awesome. Kylo doesn't look very confrontational, and I don't think they've had their fight outside yet. I wonder if this is the first time they've seen each other since The Last Jedi. Earlier, I guessed Finn was keeping an eye on Rey from afar as she approached the Death Star. Here, I think he saw Kylo Ren approaching, and so he and Janna sped over to the ruins to warn her and help her out. He is definitely screaming Rey here. But what is going on here? Kylo and Rey destroy Vader's helmet together. There's already some debris on the floor, so have they just been running amok in that room, destroying all kinds of relics? Kylo has his helmet on now, which leads me to believe that this is after the Death Star fight. They're against each other at that point. They fight. He's not wearing the helmet. Then for some reason, during the movie, he decides it's time to reforge the helmet. So now he's wearing it again, but they seem to be on the same side at this point. And Rey's got this weird dagger thing. What is going on, and where is this even? I want to guess it's First Order related with the pill lights on the walls, but I don't know. There's a shot of Finn and Poe and 3PO in a cave or something. I think this is probably on Pisana, the desert planet. Now we're back to the Orback charge on the Star Destroyer. The destroyers are taking off, but there are smaller ships coming in to land, it looks like. This could be part of that potential evacuation we saw Rose taking part in earlier. You can also see several TIE daggers, an X-Wing, and a B-Wing fly by. Kylo Ren stands somewhere in the dark, maybe the Death Star ruins, I have no idea. And finally, Rey confronts, I'm guessing, the Emperor or just an empty cloak. Or is it really him? Is it a clone? Or is it actually like a hologram, Operation Cinder style? It's interesting that he seems to be connected to some sort of moving apparatus. I think this is in that throne room we saw earlier, but why wasn't he sitting in the throne at any point? I'm still super iffy on bringing Palpatine back, but I also can't deny how excited I am to hear his voice and his laugh again. Whatever they do, even if it's a clone, I will just work through my feelings and accept it. Over the last shot of Rey with the lightsaber, Luke says, "The Force will be with you," and Leia closes it out with, "Always." Oof, giving Carrie the final word was a nice touch. This is a wonderful trailer. I'm nothing but excited, and I don't think it gave too much away. I don't feel like I have any kind of idea what the structure of this movie is going to be. I have guesses, but I'm not confident at all. I'm just ready to see it. I got my tickets. I hope you all did too. It's late. I don't have any more to say, so I'm just going to sign off. If you've got anything you noticed and you want to talk about it, leave it in the comments. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and consider checking out our Patreon page. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.